Kia ora, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Spilt the Plot. Thank you so much for being here and joining me for another week. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining us. Just a little bit of background story. My name is Bailey and I'm your host for Spilt the Plot. I created this podcast solely because I love reading, I love media, movies, TV shows, games, all of that I really enjoy all of it, and I thought, why not make a show or a podcast where I get to just talk about all of it, recommend things, meet people, and just create an awesome community. So that's what this is. Thank you for joining along, and thanks for joining the family. By now you will have already seen the title of today's episode, and I'm so excited to get in today's episode. I've just had quite a few people asking for recommendations about thriller and horror novels, so I'm really excited because I thought of this episode just because I feel like it would be great to kind of dive into thriller and horror from my lens and talk about it more. But before we actually do any of that, I obviously want to start with what's the haps, and we have a pretty interesting what the haps. So I guess what's happened recently. Last week, I apologize, I didn't release an episode and I felt really stressed out about it. I was like, this is weird, like not having to worry about editing or scheduling an episode. Like it was really interesting. But the reason for missing last week's episode is I actually had a surgery. I had my tailbone removed, which has created a lot of difficulties with sitting. I'm actually currently not fully sitting normally, which is why I'm on this like sideways lean. I'm actually just sitting on like a butt cheek and a butt cheek sort of. That's the only way that I can sit at the moment. I am still quite sore, and the medication I'm on is making me quite drowsy, but it is helping a lot and I'm healing very well. But that is why I wasn't able to make an episode last week. I've just been quite sore and a bit drowsy. So as I said, I'm accommodating for the pain and the inability to sit at the moment. So I'm on this like weird sideways lean and I might jump between sides during the episode. I'm just still getting used to sitting again. It is quite sore, but I will hopefully be fully recovered soon and better than ever. One, I guess, upside to actually having surgery and being off for a while is I have had the opportunity to read quite a bit. Not as much as I would hope to read. I'm still, again, every time I pick up a book, because I'm so drowsy, I'm struggling to stay awake while reading. It is really hard. So I have been trying to just get through as much as possible, listen to audiobooks as much as possible. But yeah, it has been a bit hard. And that pretty much sums up what's been going on. I have not been up to much, haven't been able to do much, to be honest. I've just been in bed. So I'm really excited to be up and sitting out of bed and just doing something that I love today. So really excited for this episode as well. Now, before we get into our topic today, obviously I need to do my last current next. So because it has been a hot minute since I last saw you, I have 3 lasts. To start off with, I read The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry, and I also read the sequel to it, which was A Welcome Reunion, which is just a little novella, but I read both of them and wow. I will talk about it a little bit later in today's episode. I do raise it at one point, but I am so conflicted with how I feel about it. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it, but then at the same time I was hoping for more. But I still really enjoyed the book. Upon sitting back a little bit and reflecting on it, I felt so immersed in this book the whole time. The characters were done so well. Highly recommend. Thriller book if you're interested, give it a read. The next book that I read after that, I did start The Night in the Moth pre-surgery, but then I kind of fell out of it, didn't really want to read it, and then coming home I just stuck back into it and finished The Night in the Moth. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it was right book, wrong time because I have seen a lot of good reviews about it and it was incredible. I really, really enjoyed it. But there was just something about it that I couldn't keep going. And usually I really like that dark academia kind of fantasy, romantasy style of writing. And Rachel Gillig's writing, love it. I love it so much. So I don't know if it was just right book, wrong time. Maybe I could have read it a little bit closer to Halloween. I don't know. I don't know what it was. It just wasn't really for me, but I still enjoyed it and can see why people love it so much. But I still enjoyed it. It's just it didn't meet the expectation that I had set for it, if that makes sense. And then I actually just finished this yesterday, Beautiful Venom. This is my first book that I read by Rena Kent, and it will not be my last. Wow. Stunning. When I think of dark romantasy, this is what I'm talking about. And obviously it is quite dark. There are some dark themes in this book. But the overall experience just of this book, I was hooked by chapter 1 and I didn't know what I was getting into. I actually bought this book and bought it purely because I kind of slightly read the blurb and was like, oh yeah, that looks interesting. The blurb does not give it any justice. This was incredible. I loved every second. I rated this 5 stars. This was so enjoyable. I finished it in 2 sittings. Loved it so much. I'm so excited for, is it Sweet Venom? Sweeting Venom? I don't know. And then Tempting Venom. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for the next book. And obviously I know that the next book is about Jude and Violet, which is his friend and her sister. But I'm so excited to read it because I have no idea where their story is going to go. No clue. And then my current read at the moment is Middle of the Night by none other than Riley Sager. I'm so excited. And actually, I found this yesterday and I got it in because, interesting fact, I don't really like hardcover books. I prefer and tend to get paperbacks. I just feel like they're nicer to read with, but I could not find a paperback version of this book, and so I've settled for the hardcover, but it actually looks so stunning. This cover is gorgeous. It's just so, I don't know, it makes me feel uneasy. Just the green and the artist, sorry, I'm not sure who it is, but it's just incredible. They've done such an incredible job. This is sort of along the lines of two boys kind of camp out in a tent. One wakes up in the morning and the other one is gone. And so it's kind of like a who did it, who kidnapped. I actually haven't started it because I literally just finished Beautiful Venom last night, but it will be my current read. I'm going to start reading it as we speak after this episode is finished recording. I will be starting this, which I'm super excited about. And then my next read, which I'm super excited about, and it is another Riley Sager book, which it has just released. I am filming this the day before it gets released to you guys. So it has been released today, and it is The Unknown by Riley Sager. I am so excited, guys. This book, he's been hyping it up for a while now, and I've been eating up every single part of the content for it. It's so good. It's a supernatural horror from what I believe, and I'm just really intrigued to see him do something not of this world. I'm so excited for it, and of course it's Riley. Are we surprised? So yeah, that is my last current next at the moment. So, to start today's episode off, I do want to say and just preface everything that I'm about to say to you is all my opinion. This is my thoughts, I guess my way of seeing things. I have done a little bit of, I want to say research, but a little bit of time of like diving through my books and having a look at the expectations for thrillers and horrors and what that looks like, a common theme throughout all of them. So that's kind of what I want to be talking about today, and just kind of give you guys a little bit of an introduction and like my guide to horror and thriller. And I just want to say I'm very well aware that people might disagree with some of the things that I have to say or have a different opinion. And I just want to say that's absolutely fine. That is the beauty of the human mind, is having your own thoughts, having your own opinions. But let's just be kind if you do not agree with some of the things I say. I want to talk about horror and thriller books because some friends have actually reached out and asked me for recommendations. And I thought, why not make an episode about the two genres and go into depth about what they are and why I enjoy it. I also want to recommend some books that I think people may find interesting, and some of them I have mentioned before. So, firstly, diving into both genres separately, I really want to talk about thriller and horror separately before we talk about them kind of together. Thriller is what we would think of as the suspenseful, psychological, and plot twisty books. It's the ones that the authors, they create these characters that we get to know really well. And the most important thing about these characters is their character arcs and how strong they are. And we have a positive character arc and a negative character arc, which means like positive, this character's getting a new or a fresh start at life after being in jail or done something bad or just something along those lines, and then they do something and they become a better person or whatever. Those are your character arcs, or a good person gone bad, those kind of things. So we're looking at character arcs, and that's what makes thriller books really good, is strong character arcs for not just one character but across the board, maybe a couple depending on the author and their style of writing. This means that we get to see the journey that they go on. We get to understand fully this character, and this allows us to build a like towards them or a dislike towards them. Many of the books I've read, for example, are dual POV, so we get to understand both sides of a story, or we get a different viewpoint, and we also get the different character arcs. We get one character with a positive character arc and another with a negative character arc. We as readers are kept on our toes most of the time. Most of the chapters will end with some sort of suspenseful cliffhanger, making you continuously think, what the F, like what's happening, what's going on. You're probably in bed at like 1 a.m. in the morning trying to fall asleep, but you want to keep reading and find out what happens. One of the reasons I love thriller books so much is because I feel so immersed with the characters, getting angry at them when they do stupid things, or if they go into the house which is like clearly haunted and you're like, no, but obviously for the story, like, yes. Or feeling worried when they think something might happen to them, or feeling like just that anxiety for this character, for what they're about to, I guess, come upon, or what is happening to them. And that is how I differentiate horror books when I rate them, is how good are these characters and how well the author has portrayed these characters to the point where I feel these feelings. If I don't feel these feelings of like worry for the characters or anything like that, I usually rate them quite low. A horror, however, is centered more around that scared or fear feeling, trying to make readers nervous about what's to come next, or even fear turning to the next page. There are different ways in which it can be done. We've got supernatural horrors, so you've got your zombies, your werewolves, your witches, or natural world horror, also known as psychological horror. That is your, I guess, things of this world that could happen that would create disaster, things that make you as a person worry about society in itself, which I do recommend about a book later, so I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Both have their differences, but I feel like for me, natural world horror is more scary. And that's because we're dealing with real things and scenarios that are happening without supernatural beings. Like when we think of vampires, werewolves, witches, these are things that have come in and I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? They are known as supernatural creatures, outer-worldly, made up, created, compared to having a natural thing happen that it makes it feel more real or more able to happen because it's more in reach compared to something supernatural. And similarly with thriller novels, these characters are written quite well. The author will make you feel the things that they're feeling, the fear that they're feeling. We get to connect with them as readers. Same thing with character arcs, because we need this character arc to be very important for this character and how we feel towards them. This helps create the atmosphere of us being like afraid. Like I said, scared when they're scared, happy when they're happy, feel like we've been successful when they've been successful, but actually we've still got more to come and they don't know it. That kind of atmosphere. But the two, horror and thriller, can also cross over, which we've seen a lot of. They both have aspects of each other, especially in a psychological horror sense. We'll see the psychological horror and thriller will come into a little bit of it, or a psychological thriller with some horror, gore, or supernatural beings or something like that. These can connect, and these two can both connect. But the question is, why am I telling you all this? Wow, that brings me to my next point. When I recommend books, especially thriller and horror books, and even when I'm not recommending just people who may have never read thriller or horror and go, oh, like, this is not what I was expecting. I was expecting this big, huge plot twist. Well, that is not always the case. While yes, a plot twist is freaking awesome and I love them so much. Like, I love a good plot twist. I love sitting there being like, what the F did I just read? There is also an aspect of the atmosphere throughout the whole book, how you felt through the entirety of the story while you read it. So what I mean by that is, like I said, I was reading The Perfect Child and earlier on I was giving my rating. I really enjoyed the storyline and all the characters, but when I finished the book, there wasn't a big plot twist and I felt kind of gutted. Like I was just like expecting something bigger than what it actually was, something to explain why she was acting like that, but it was more just that it didn't have anything crazy. It was just a normal, I guess, something that would probably normally happen. But when I sat back and actually looked at the storyline and how I felt while reading it, I realized that the whole book actually made me feel suspenseful the whole time. From chapter 1, I was hooked. I was on my toes at the end of every single chapter. And so regardless of whether or not there is a massive plot twist or not, I still really enjoyed the book. So again, I got to the end of the book and I was like, oh, are you serious? Like, where's the rest of the plot? Like, what? But I had to remember that actually this is how the book ends, but the whole book had me like hooked. And the novella did save it. I loved the novella. It just made me feel satisfaction. There was like a sort of dissatisfaction with the ending of A Perfect Child. And then she wrote the novella a few years later and I was just like, chef's kiss, that's what I needed. That's what I needed. Now we've come to the point where I have a few recommendations. I only have 4. I thought 4 was just a good place to start and they kind of touch in little bit of areas, like I always say, like different niches. So first of all, one of my favorite all-time thriller books, and we have spoken about this book before on the podcast. I've recommended this book to so many people, and that is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. A couple moves into a house and they've only just moved in, and a family comes and knocks on the door claiming they used to live there and want to look around. One of the new homeowners decides to let them in. However, this causes an onset of weird events, including missing children and weird encounters in the house. If you like a feeling of suspense or confusion, an uncanny feeling, and an ending that will leave you with more questions, this is the book I would recommend most. And then another book that I would recommend is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. A night out at a restaurant, two women meet and find that they share the same birthday. To one of the women, this is an exciting coincidence. To another, she feels like it's fate. Alex Summer has a popular podcast, and Josie slides her way onto it after tracking Alex down and inserting herself into Alex's life. Josie shares her stories with Alex, but as the two get to know each other more and her story on the podcast becomes more inconsistent, Alex starts to piece together information that makes her feel uneasy. If you like delusional characters, strange obsessions, and what the F moments, this is the book I would recommend most. And that's one of my faves. None of This Is True is another one of my favorites. Another book I would recommend is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rukalak. Again, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that name wrong. But this book follows Mallory, who takes up a job as a live-in nanny with the Maxwells, who are a well-off family, and she is looking after their son, Teddy. Teddy starts to show Mallory his art. He really likes to draw. But as the book goes on, the drawings start to get extremely disturbing, which begin to alarm Mallory. Teddy explains that his friend Anya draws them, and he is essentially the host. So Anya, this friend who does not exist really, uses his body to draw, essentially. So he's the host for her. Mallory gets help from her neighbor, and as they investigate, they reveal something shocking. If you like suspense, uneasiness, and interesting investigations, this is the book I would recommend for you. And last but not least, this book is an interesting one. Tender as the Flesh by Augustine Bazterrica. Before I even give a description of this book, I do want to preface checking the trigger warnings is so essential for this book. It is quite a horrific story, and it's quite gory, and as a horror book, it is quite confronting. So I would very, very highly recommend that you read the trigger warnings. But this book essentially is about the animals on Earth have contracted a disease that affects humans, and as a result, humans can no longer eat meat. Their solution? Breed humans for food. This story follows Marcos, who is a manager at a processing plant, and I mean processing plant as in a human processing plant. So they breed humans and like animals like we do. And he is given a gift which shifts the course of the story. We see him continuously battle with feeling uneasy about his job, but also take advantage of his role. We see his broken home life. And yeah, this book is just heavily disturbing, but really interesting to read at the same time. An interesting concept. And really the only thing that I have to say is if you're curious like me, this is the book I would recommend most. That is the reason I read it, was because I was curious as to what everyone was talking about. So that actually concludes today's episode. I'm so glad that I'm back doing episodes. Content will still be a little bit slow. As I recover, more content will still come out, but I'm still kind of unable really to do that much. Even just sitting here today has been quite hard, but I love doing these so much, and I love my podcast and I love my episodes, so I'm just really trying to push through and get this episode out for you guys and for myself, because I really enjoy doing this. Next week will be our book club episodes, but it's also our first episode for The Deal by Ellie Kennedy, which I'm so excited for. I've been reading the Off-Campus book at the moment, and the series is so good. I'm so excited to just talk about Gareth and Hannah. I'm so excited to talk about them again because I watched Off-Campus a while ago, and I actually might treat myself to the episodes again once I finish the series, which I'm really, really excited about. But yeah, like I said, that is all for today's episode. If you are listening in the morning, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're listening in the car, please drive safe. And if you are listening at night, I hope you have a wonderful sleep. And I will see you guys next week at the same time. Bye.